I want to talk today simply from the subject, treasures in the storm. Treasures in the storm. We don't always understand why there have to come storms, but storms will come and storms will go. You can't stop storms from coming. They're going to come anyway. So you may as well just prepare yourself for the storms, because storms come and go. If you live long enough, you're going to endure a storm. You're going to deal with storms. But has it ever dawned on you that Jesus wanted to use this particular storm where he was as a lesson to the other disciples, and not only to the other disciples, but as a lesson to us? When I read Scripture, I don't read Scripture as some type of a history book as to what happened then to a certain group of people. I want to read the Bible and say, God, what is it that you're saying to me in this day and time, in the circumstances of my life, because we still deal with storms. So when we have storms, what is it, God, that you're saying to me? Life has storms, but we have this charge to go to the other side. Jesus told his disciples to get into this ship and go to the other side. He told them, go to the other side. And listen, Jesus told them to get in the ship and go to the other side, knowing that there was going to be a storm on the way. Isn't it amazing that you can be right in the center of God's will and right in the middle of a storm? That's the thing that blows our mind. Could God tell us to go someplace and then have a storm already programmed or scheduled to meet us along the way? And if so, why? What's in the storm for us? There are all kinds of storms. You can get in the middle of life. God can say, I want you to go to the other side. You can be on your way to the other side. As you grow older, I meant from youth into middle age, when you go to the other side, you could face a health storm. You could face a financial storm. You could face a relationship storm and go through a divorce. You might face a storm, and he knew that the storm was coming before you ever got in the ship. But he told us anyway, I want you to go to the other side. But see, there is treasure in the storm for you. There's treasure in the storm for you. Don't ever come out of your storm without your treasure. There's treasure in the storm for you. Because here's what storms do. Storms cause you to reevaluate what's important to you. They'll cause you to reevaluate what's important to you. You start thinking about what's important to you if you ever get in a storm. We've got all kinds of storms. Tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons, monsoons, earthquakes. There are all kinds of storms, tsunamis. There are a wide variety of storms, but the storms cause you to reevaluate what's important to you. There are firestorms, hailstorms, but a storm will cause you to reevaluate what's important to you. If you had to get out of your house quickly and you couldn't take but one box full of stuff, what in the world would you put in that box? I mean, if you got to load up everything that's valuable to you in your vehicle, what would you put in the vehicle? You see, it helps you to reevaluate what's really important to you. I notice when I'm on the plane, they're always talking about in case of an emergency, not to get your stuff out of your overhead. I'm going to try to get my laptop, my iPad or something, They tell the women to don't put your heels on, if you're sliding out, you can't wear your heels. I'm going to try to get my carry-on bag or something, There's certain things, though, they tell you, don't forget about when you're trying to save your life, it's about your life. If you just get out with your life, and if you lose your jewelry and your extra pair of shoes and your earrings, your diamond stud earrings, if you lose your stuff but save your life, listen, that's why when you get in a storm, you have to reevaluate what is important to you. You reevaluate. So it speaks to us about it. There is treasure in the storm for you. I want you to realize your life will go through some storms. There are some people who are in this place today, some folks that are watching by live stream, that are listening by television. And listen, your life is in a storm. Storms come and storms go. But what do you do while you're in a storm? I'm just here to remind you today that there is something in the storm for you. Haruki Murakami said this, that when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what the storm's all about. You're not the same person who comes out of that storm. When you go into a storm and you come out of a storm, you're not the same person. A storm changes you because there is treasure in the storm for you. I'm always amazed at what God can do out of even what we might consider to be a tragedy in our life. I mean, God is a master of taking stuff that comes at you one way and flipping it and turning it into something else. I love it when God does a plot twist. I love it when evil is sent to you this way and God flips the script. Come on, somebody do your hand like this and say, flip the script, Jesus. I get excited when God will come and flip the script on you. He has the capacity to flip the script. That it looked like it was coming one way, but God can flip the script. In a moment, He is the author and the finisher. The author always has writer's privilege of being able to flip the script. Well, it makes it look like the villain was winning, that he had gotten you down and discouraged and gotten you locked up and took your tax money and got all kind of stuff. But God has the ability to say, you know what, I'm the one who's authoring this story. I'm going to flip the script. They're going to condemn him to the cross, but they think that they've got him, but I'm going to flip the script. They're going to send him as a slave, and I'm going to put him in exile. But God will take Moses and flip the script. He has a way. He has a way. When they took Jonah and threw him up over into the water, and a big fish had been prepared for it, God flipped the script. He specializes in flipping the script. He really does. He really does. So God can turn. He can turn a mess into a message. I love how He does it. He can turn a test into a testimony. I love it how God can turn a trial into a triumph. God has the way of being able to turn a victim into a victory. I just love how God is able to flip the script. Every storm is a school. Every storm is a school. Don't come out of the school without learning your lesson. Every storm is a school. Every trial is a test. Every experience is an education. Don't come out of the experience without your education. And every difficulty is for your development. So don't leave out of the storm without the treasure that is designed for you. You see, when you go through a storm, you will realize at many times there is what I would call the suddenness of the storm. The suddenness of the storm. So, storms sometimes come without warning. You didn't see it coming. There's some storms that sneak up on you. You just get caught in the storm. You get caught in certain storms because you didn't see it coming. So there's the suddenness of the storm. And then you have to be concerned about the severity of the storm. Storms they can be so severe that they can make you feel like you're going to die. When the severity of the storm reminds us of our humanity. It reminds us of our humanity. And then there is the secret of the storm. The secret of the storm. The secret of the storm gives us another perspective of life. It is the secret of the storm. God uses the storm to create defining moments for us. He uses them to create defining moments. And then there is the source of the storm. Because storms arise from a particular place of origin. Storms arise from a particular place of origin. Where did your storm come from? I know some people that end up getting a storm on their job, and they didn't realize they were the origin of the storm because they were shooting off at the mouth. You can let stuff come out of your mouth and cause the own storm against you because of something that you did. Isn't it amazing how people get in trouble and they're the one that initiated the trouble? It was their attitude or their response to something that actually caused the storm, and then they want to blame somebody else when it was the way they responded to a situation, and then you want to say, well, why the Lord, why you let this happen to me? And sometimes we are the cause of our own storms in our life. We pick the fight and get beat up, and then we want to blame the devil. No, we really do. My pastor used to talk about how the devil would be sitting out on the front stoop of the church just crying. And Jesus walks up to him and says, Satan, what's wrong? And he said, those people in there are blaming stuff on me that I didn't do. So you have to always understand something about the source of the storm. If the storm is self-inflicted, deal with it and ride it out. Deal with it. I mean, you make your bed, sleep in it. You know, deal with it. Some storms are self-inflicted. You got to learn how to bridle your tongue. Because if you say whatever you want to say, there are consequences. I mean, you can do what you want to do, but you cannot choose the consequences. You can make the choice, but you can't choose the consequences. So you have to just ride it out. If it is a self-inflicted storm, ride it out. If it is a demonic storm, and there are demonic storms, if it is a demonic storm, rebuke it. Jesus rebuked the winds. If it is something demonic, rebuke it. But then, if the storm was sent by God, what do? You can't rebuke a storm that God sent. Jonah was out of the will of God. God sent a storm. You can't rebuke what God sends. By whose authority would you rebuke it? So if you are dealing with a storm that is sent by God, you have to relinquish your will and submit to the storm, and then there will be peace. You have to submit to it. I'm just telling you, God will beat you at the waiting game. I mean, He's God. He's Lord of the storm. And so remember, there's the suddenness of the storm, the severity of the storm, the secret of the storm, the source of the storm. And you have to discover, is this storm coming from something I did? Is this something that the devil has done? Or is this something that God is trying to do in my life? I mean, what's the source of this? And you won't always readily know why you are experiencing certain storms. Storms happen for three reasons: for doing right, for doing wrong, and for no apparent reason. There's something that will happen, and it's like, you'll be like, what I do now. There's no apparent reason. You can be doing everything right, and here comes a storm. Storms happen for doing right, storms happen for doing wrong, and storms happen for no apparent reason. For no apparent reason. Let me say this to you. Don't try to understand everything, because sometimes it's not meant to be understood, it's just meant to be accepted. Don't try to understand everything. Everything is not designed to be understood. Some things are designed just to be accepted. You have to accept something that you will never understand, or you won't understand right now. You may understand it better by and by, but you may not understand it right now. You just have to accept it, because there's nothing that you can do about it. You have to accept certain things that are to be accepted and not to be understood. You will pull all of your hair out, what little you have left, if you try to understand everything that happens, because some things are totally insane. They make no logical sense. You will stay up for weeks trying to investigate and said, I did everything right. I was trying to be sweet. I was trying to be nice. Why didn't he respond? Why didn't she respond? Why was I still let go? And sometimes there won't be an apparent reason. You just have to accept it and be able to move on so you can have peace. You have to accept some things so you can have peace, because you don't want your peace to be robbed and then to live a life without understanding peace. But I love how Jesus told the disciples, let us go across to the other side. Now, you know what? That alone tells you that Jesus is a leader and not a boss. He's a leader and not a boss. The leader says, let's go, or come on. The boss says, you go or go on. But Jesus said, let us go to the other side. He was clearly indicating by that, I'm coming with you. The leader says, let's go. And that's what Jesus was clearly saying, I'm going with you. When he says, let's go to the other side, he says, I want to take you to a different experience in life that you've not yet seen. You've not yet seen. And so I'm excited about the fact that God wants us to be able to experience more than what we have experienced before. And maybe it's time for you to just cross over to the other side of where you have been. He says he constrained his disciples. He made his disciples get into a ship, a relationship, a fellowship, a discipleship, a membership, and then go to the other side. What's the other side of where you have been? I mean, you already know what it feels like to be broke. It's time to cross over to the other side. You know what it feels like to be sick. It's time to cross over to the other side. You know what it feels like, to have fear in your life. It's time to cross over to the other side. You know what messing up feels like. It's time to cross over to the other side. You know what failure feels like. It's time to cross over to the other side. You see, the Lord is really ready to expand your horizon. He's ready to take you where you've never been, to the other side, because some people have only known one side of life. And the side of life that they've known has not been the most positive. It has not been the most fulfilling. It has not been the healthiest. It has not been the most abundant. And they've just been on one side, and they make the assumption that the whole world is based on the one side that you've been on. And so he says, I want you to go to the other side. I want you to see that not everybody lives the way that you live. And sometimes you just need to go across town to see that people live on a different way. To help your dreaming capacity, you have to just go and to make a trip to the other side just so you can start dreaming on another level. But here's the great quintessential question. Are you willing to leave the comfort zone? See, that's the great quintessential question. Are you willing to leave the comfort zone? Because most people don't want to leave the crowd. Most folks don't want to leave the crowd. But if you want something that you've never had, you got to do something you've never done. So Jesus says, get in the boat. I want to take you to the other side. And if you'd be honest in evaluating, whenever you grew the most, you would discover, when do you think that you would discover your most growth? During times of comfort or during times that were challenging and stressful? You don't grow the most in a comfort zone. You grow the most when your life is under pressure. You grow the most when you're under stress. You grow the most when you're outside of the comfort zone, when you are being challenged on the inside. Now I want you to notice Mark chapter 4 verse 37, and a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. Notice that, Mark chapter 4 verse 37. The boat was already filling. It was filling up with water. And this great windstorm arose. Listen, here's the message that I want you to realize, is that there will be adversity in life. There will be adversity in life. There's no way to get around it. There will be adversity in life. Did you notice that Jesus was in the boat with them and they still experienced a storm? I don't know why we make the assumption that if Jesus is with us, we're not going to have a storm, as though he's some kind of a lucky charm. That people, they get in a storm and people start reaching for their cross if they got one on. As though it's some type of good luck charm. They feel a storm coming, they want to use it, like some kind of a charm. Jesus can be with you and you can still have a storm. He's already in the boat with you when the storm comes. So there's no reason to assume that he's not with you. But there will be adversity in life. You know why? Storms touch every life. Storms touch every life. Every life. You live long enough, everybody's going to go through a storm. 100% of those who are set for unique promotions have to endure seasons of contradiction. They have to deal with storms. Storms touch every life. They touch every life. Let me just say it this way, that if you're on your way, expect something to be in your way. If you're on your way, expect something to be in your way. Because There will be obstacles. There's going to be challenge in every situation that you deal with in life. And you really don't want to live a life where there are no storms. Your life would be boring. The storm carries something for you. There are treasures in the storm. And listen, this is the thing that you have to realize, that if God stops your storms, He also stunts your growth. If He stops your storm, He stunts your growth. So you don't want life to never have any storms. If you go to a movie, if there's no storm, if there's no conflict, if there's no troublemaker, if there's no adversary, if there is no antagonist, the movie is boring. The book is boring. There has to be a trouble. I don't care how small. You can have a hot dog stand, and you're like, you don't remember all of the sweet customers that abide by the rule. You remember the drunk who comes in there, and you have to get out of here, man. You have to start threatening some people. And I had to go ahead and pull my piece out on because somebody. And that's the one that you're going to remember. That's the one that you're going to remember. So everybody is going to have storms that they deal with, but just remember that if God stops your storm, He stunts your growth. And this is another wonderful benefit of the treasure that's in the storm, is that adversity introduces us to ourselves. Adversity introduces us to ourselves. Now, why do I say that? Because there are some things that are in you that you'll never know what's in you until you are presented with a storm. Adversity can also help us to become more spiritual, because people tend to think of God more during a storm. I don't know why. When people get in a storm, they start thinking about God. When we were growing up, and it would be raining and thundering and lightning, I mean, particularly thunder and lightning, I don't know when our parents just used to psych us out just to make us sit down and be quiet. I think that parents just wanted some peace, but they, shh, shh. God is doing His work. Shh. They just made you get quiet. You unplugged things and turned everything off. Turned the lights off, sat in the dark. Shh. It was just scary, just scary. But adversity has a way of introducing us to ourselves. If people they have a tendency to become a little more spiritual in a storm. When you weren't thinking about God, but all of a sudden you go through a storm, you start thinking about God. You start thinking about God. They didn't think about Jesus being on the ship until the storm came. They said, hey, where's Jesus? He was fine. He was down in the ship sleep. He was asleep before the storm. Nobody was concerned about Him then. But the minute a storm came, hey, where's Jesus? Storms have an ability to make you more spiritual. And listen, this is what I want you to understand very clearly. Becoming more spiritual does not mean that you are becoming less human. Your humanity will remain intact. We are human beings, not human doings. We are human beings. And as you become more spiritual, it does not mean that you become less human. You're still human. And there are proclivities of your humanity that no storm will ever take away. So a storm will come and it will expose your humanity. It'll draw us closer to God, but then, Jesus, we're afraid. That's a human reaction. Being fearful of loss of your life, of possessions, of time, of love, of relationships. When you get in a storm, it reminds you of your humanity. The storm reinforces your humanity, how frail we are. So it reinforces for us our humanity. And so we can't run away from those things. But just remember that there is no opportunity without opposition. So there's going to be challenge, there's going to be controversy. But when storms come in your life, it is a time that you need equanimity. What is equanimity? I thought somebody would ask. That's what I brought a definition. Equanimity is mental calmness. It is composure. It is evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. Equanimity. And that's what you need in a storm is equanimity, mental calmness. You need composure. You cannot get in a storm and freak out. When you lose your mental calmness and composure, you can't think, you can only react. You need mental composure. You need calmness. You need evenness of temper to be able to know what to do when you get in a storm, because if you lose equanimity, it is like losing your mental equilibrium. You cannot function. You need equanimity in a storm. You need to calm down in a storm. Every time I've been on a plane, and you know, sometimes we hit these dead air pockets and the plane will suddenly drop so many feet instantly, and I can't tell you the number of times that I've had total strangers just reach over and just grab my hand. I'm like, excuse me, dude. I didn't know that we knew each other like that. And you know, I don't know why, but I just, I love roller coasters, the ones that go upside down and, all of this. And I love the feeling. And so I become exhilarated when I'm on an airplane and we experience turbulence. I'm like, now the ride is getting good. Oh, yes. So I actually enjoy it. When other people are panicking, I come alive. But there is a calmness. My equanimity is outstanding, and people somehow are able to feel my mental calmness, my temperance. In the midst of that, I'm very, very calm in turbulence on an airplane. And it's just because I'm confident in the one who has told me, let's go to the other side. I'm confident that I'm going to get to the other side. I am. So there's not a fear that I'm getting ready to lose my life. I'm like, Lord, my will is submitted to you. I'm submitted to doing your will, and you're the one who told me to come over here. You told me to go to the other side. I'm confident I'm riding on his word, not on the plane, not on the skill of the pilot. I'm riding on his word. So they somehow pick up my equanimity, and they just grab onto it. One lady she was just holding on to me, and she realized about 5 minutes after the turbulence, I looked at her, I'm like, are we going together? What? I'm married. She was a nervous wreck though, but she drew strength from my calm. From my calm. You'll be surprised at what your equanimity can do. But equanimity is not really based on what you know, but who you know, and it is the realization that God is with you.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Join us again next time for Power for Living, where revelation is power. Power for living.